All right, so problem 78 on page 410 is a sister to problem 77. Both of these problems are about the average rate of change of trig functions. And this specific problem says, what's the average rate of change of the function cosine 2x over the interval from x equals 0 to pi over 2? So, we can, and we will, kind of just make use of the definition. Remember, the average rate of change is the difference quotient. It depends only on the value of the function at the endpoints, in this case x equals 0 and x equals pi over 2. And in fact, what we're going to do is we're going to put pi over 2 into this function. We're going to subtract what we get when we put 0 into this function, and then we're going to divide the whole thing by pi over 2, and that's the answer. But let's get some geometric feeling for this before we go diving into it in that manner. Let me just quickly sketch what the cosine of 2x must look like here. The cosine, remember, where the sine at 0 starts at 0, the cosine starts up at 1. And then if I was to put the value, say, pi over 2, let me put pi over 4 into this function, pi over 4. If I put x equals pi over 4, then 2 times pi over 4 is pi over 2. And then you have to ask yourself, what's the cosine doing at pi over 2? And the answer is, it's going to 0. Let me do that again then. Let me put pi over 2 in rather than pi over 4. 2 times pi over 2 is pi. What is the value of the cosine at pi? And the answer is -1. And I'll put 3 pi over 4 here, but I've sort of gone far enough already. But you can see I can draw the curve now, and there is what this function looks like, down and up. So again, what we've been asked for is, what is the average rate of change over this interval from 0 to pi over 2? And what I want you to see is that it starts out positive, it ends up negative. So the function is changing, it's decreasing the entire time. So the number we're looking for is a negative number, right? And let's just go figure out what it is from there, because the average rate of change, over 0 to pi over 2 of cosine of 2x is, it's like I'm hearing a drum roll here, is cosine, I'm going to write it like this, 2x evaluated at x equals pi over 2 minus cosine of 2x evaluated at x is equal to 0, all divided by pi over 2 minus 0, the length of the interval. All right, so let's write this down. What is the cosine of 2x evaluated at pi over 2? Go ahead and throw pi over 2 in there. 2 times pi over 2 is pi. What is the cosine of pi? Well, I'll just write it down here. Cosine of pi minus, let's go over here, cosine of 2x, insert x equals 0, 0. What is the cosine of 0? Well, we'll get back to that in just a second. And pi over 2 minus 0 is pi over 2. So I'm ready to put some numbers against this. Cosine of pi is -1. Cosine of 0 is 1. I got pi over 2 down here. So I got a -2 up on the top. I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 2 over pi, and I'm going to end up with -4 all over pi. So does that look reasonable? On average, the function goes down by a number a little bit bigger than -1, right? It went from 1 down to -1, so it went down -2, and it did that over a stretch that was pi over 2 long. Yeah, -4 over pi is the answer.